Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the best Nintendo podcast taking place on this Wednesday night and any Wednesday night that we may be live. Game and Talk. Of course, this show is funded by you guys. Of course, we have our patrons who make this possible, and we have our special tier patrons who definitely make it possible. We got Trent A in the producer role. Patrons, Patron. Trent A, producer. William Hoag, executive producer. Mr. Joby for 3, executive producer. Joshua Butts, a.k.a. The Butt Man, executive producer. John O, executive producer. Achievement, executive producer. And once again, folks, the Game Orb. Let me be real with you right now. The reason why this show exists is because of the Game Orb. Because if Game Orb didn't exist, I wouldn't be on here right now. But the Game Orb is our sponsor once again for the month. He is a content creator. He has a channel on YouTube. He has a channel on Twitch. Check out the link in the description box down below. Go show him some Spawncast love because he essentially makes this show possible. And without him, I'd probably have to punch John in the face. He does convention walkthroughs. He does gameplay videos, all that sort of good video gaming content. A huge thank you to the Game Orb and all of our Patreon backers and producers. I am RGT85, joined as always by Josie. Whoa, Josie, how we doing?
Great.
All right. And Nate, how we doing?
Same as Josie.
All right. Go off to a blinding fast start. So I was under the impression, because I'm on YouTube a lot looking at stuff, I thought there was a direct today. I saw videos saying February 7th, confirmed happening February 7th, happening this week. They're going to talk about Switch 2 this week as well. We're going to get unveiled during this week. And it seemed like Tommy Bear doesn't quite know what he led on to know. But we still do have some tangible topics for you. Of course, Nate the Hate put out a video today making some interesting claims, which we'll jump into. But first, let's talk about the sales stuff. I know it's not the most glamorous thing in the world, but we gotta have a little bit of sales stuff to talk about. And I mean, it's pretty crazy. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 60 million. It's not a pack-in. It's not a Wii Sports pack-in game. Like, it gets packed in occasionally here and there during the holiday season. But this game, I don't even know what to say about this game. Like 60 million. What's the max? What's the max? What's the highest game ever sold? Was it Tetris still?
No, I think it's Minecraft.
Really?
Is it Minecraft or is it Grand Theft Auto 5?
Oh, I thought it was Minecraft because it's on literally everything.
All right, let's look here, people. All right, this website sucks ass. KCRA, you suck ass. Anyways, 60 million.
Yeah, it is Minecraft.
It is Minecraft.
With 300 million copies sold. And then GTA
60 million.
5.
What's that at?
19 million.
Okay.
Or 19. Yeah. Wait,
what?
It's 190 million. There it is.
Okay,
sorry.
there we go.
I was having a brain aneurysm.
But you do have to remember, folks, that game came across 4 platforms. Minecraft's available on a million different platforms. This is 60 million for essentially one platform is batshit crazy. But I mean, there's a reason why they made all that DLC. And I think the proof is in the pudding. But the more interesting debate, of course, Switch hardware sales strong, but not the strongest, still down year over year. But don't say that too loud or else some people will be mad at you. But the most interesting thing had to be Tears of the Kingdom. Because according to some people, Nintendo is crying. They're not happy with these sales. Tears of the Kingdom is a smidge over 20 million, which, when did they say 18 million? That was pretty close to launch-ish, wasn't it? Or am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, I think it was like 2 or so weeks after launch, right?
Yeah, it was within that first It was within that launch window that you would typically assign a product, so it was quite quick. And it was that they had shipped 18 million. The sell through, I think, was somewhere in the mid 15 million range. And then we had the follow up fiscal report where they came in at, what was the figure then? It wasn't much higher, and it really had people kind of wondering, well, what was happening here? And we learned that the game was overshipped going into the holiday, and now we have those updated figures that obviously include holiday sales. And it looked as though Nintendo shipped in the area of just shy of 800,000 copies of Tears of the Kingdom during the holiday quarter or their Q3, bringing total shipments just north of 20 million. I believe it's 20.28.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting that it's below Super Mario Party, which is really random, but I didn't realize that game sold so well.
I think that game got a bit of a boost when they added in the online to it as well. I think it was slightly discounted. But obviously, that's one thing that's been heavily debated. And I know people like myself have said, "Hey, you know what? It's going to sell like gangbusters, but I don't think it's going to pass Breath of the Wild." And people were but, if we're judging it by the latest statistics and kind of that drop off there, like, because to me, Breath of the Wild was that new thing. It was fresh, it was different, it was the first time that Zelda went, in a completely open world. But then you have, okay, Blismo says 20 million in 7 months versus Breath of the Wild 31 million in 7 years. Good point. But
However,
however, you have to
the
look at rates of how it was doing. Plus, Nate's about to say it.
you also have to consider that the Breath of the Wild sales, it was a game people were picking up as they were buying the Switch over a period of time. Whereas with Tears of the Kingdom, the Zelda base was already established. People who had interest in Tears of the Kingdom were ready to buy the game day one. So naturally, it's going to have a more shallow leg life. And that's what I'm very perplexed by, is how people are stunned that the sales are slowly, considerably, and they're not being comparable to that of Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was a system seller. Tears of the Kingdom is not. Tears of the Kingdom is selling to that established base, which is fine, which is exactly what it should be doing, especially this late in a console life cycle. So the debate about whether or not Tears of the Kingdom was ever going to outsell Breath of the Wild, I think is an interesting conversation back in April or March of last year. But there were so many confident that it was going to drive hardware sales, that it was going to outsell Breath of the Wild, when historically we have never seen a Zelda that appears the same generation of hardware outsell its predecessor. It largely can just come down to, is there still interest for the game as you get later into a generation life cycle, as we saw with Skyward Sword? A significant drop off from Twilight Princess, which was a launch game. Breath of the Wild was new, it was innovative, it was exciting. Tears of the Kingdom refined some elements, did introduce a new gimmick, but you also have to consider how many people played Breath of the Wild, realized this is not the Zelda game that I want to play. Those individuals weren't coming back for Tears of the Kingdom. Now, Tears of the Kingdom may have sold to a new audience, but was that going to be enough to offset those who weren't coming back due to the direction Breath of the Wild has taken the franchise? Where it's performing is admirable. This is a very strong performance. Nintendo has to be ecstatic with 20 million sales in less than a year. The idea that anyone can frame it as poor is really confusing to me. And it's not going to catch Breath of the Wild at this point, at least not in the native Switch release. If Nintendo opts to re-release it for the Switch 2 in the future, that is a whole different release. That's a different conversation. But there is no feasible way it's going to catch Breath of the Wild during this current generation.
Yeah, and like Jay Arthur said, any company would kill for a 20 million seller. Like, nobody is saying that the game didn't sell well. The question was always, was it going to pass Breath of the Wild? And I always thought no. But if you say that too loud, people get upset about that. It's not indicative of the quality of the game. It's like Nate said, if you weren't a fan of the Breath of the Wild style, you're not going to buy Tears of the Kingdom, because you've already played something pretty similar to it. And I don't think Tears of the Kingdom necessarily changed enough stuff to where it made it to where it was like, oh, well, I didn't like Breath of the Wild, but I'm going to like this. Like, this wasn't a God of War 3 to God of War PS4, like this was a sequel in line with the original game and building upon it.
Yeah, and what
And
I
that's
think is
another. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think a lot of the shock of it is because initially we heard it's selling so insanely, right? So it's like, for me at least, I was just kind of surprised, but it makes sense like you guys have been saying. And at this point, if you're gonna get a Nintendo Switch, maybe you're new to the system. I think that the game you pick up with it isn't Tears of the Kingdom. It's still Breath of the Wild, right? Because like you kind of have to know Breath of the Wild to want to play Tears of the Kingdom. So like you guys have been saying, it's just almost a smaller audience. And again, 20 million is
Mhm.
insanely good. There are a bunch of like videos where people were like, "Oh, Nintendo's disappointed," and I just really think that's insane because there's no
And I
way.
mean,
And
I
like
would go
Blizz.
as far to say that Breath of the Wild is the better game.
Yeah, I mean it
Mm,
established everything, right? So like it's hard to look at Breath of the Wild or at Tears of the Kingdom independently of Breath of the Wild at least.
and Blizmo says 20 million at $70. Another good point because you're
Sure.
making more
Yeah, you
off
made
that
more
game.
money.
Yeah.
You made more money on this release than you would have made with Breath of the Wild at its 30 million because of that higher price point. And conversely, you could also make the argument that did the higher price point dissuade some potential interested buyers as well? Or did it
Mhm.
lead people to go digital because of Nintendo's, what's the program called? The
Uh,
certificate system,
oh yeah, yeah,
voucher.
yeah.
The
The
voucher system
Yeah.
vouchers.
where for $100 you can get 2 games. So how many people went digital and save themselves a little bit of money by going that route? Or did some people just see that price and say, I'm going to wait for a sale, or I don't have interest in the game overall? But the sales are strong. Any company would kill to have a title sell 20 million copies in less than a year. So anyone trying to frame this as a negative is, I mean, I would say they're just trying to do it to get some engagement and outrage from a viewing audience. And Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, games that are very controversial due to their performance, is they are now the third highest selling Pokemon games of all time.
Behind Sword and Shield, which was really weird. I
Yes.
feel like it's a bizarre one to sell as well as it did. But yeah, I just think that there's not a lot Nintendo could have done, to like I mean, like actually here, I think that Tear or Breath of the Wild has sold as well as it has as well because there's been so many price drops and iteration like there's just been a lot of exposure to it. So I think that Tears of the Kingdom still has a good chance to continue to sell upwards of maybe like even 30 million, but yeah, at this point I don't see it passing Breath of the Wild, but still it's a massive success.
I think in its current iteration, it could get like 25 in its life.
Yeah, maybe 30 was a bit high, but
If they did a
definitely more.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna flat. This isn't Metroid Dread where it's gonna completely flatline people. It'll still sell some. But no, I could see like 25 as kind of the ceiling for that. And I mean, that's a good ceiling to have.
Oh,
Like,
it's fantastic. I mean, the other thing I think we also have to take into consideration with Tears of the Kingdom is Nintendo was very transparent early on that we are not getting DLC or any expansion content for the game. And had they had expansion, maybe there would have been further interest in the title as we get into now that evergreen period of the 7, 12-month, 18-month, 24 months from the original release, because that does spark new interest. And some individuals who maybe bought the game at launch, completed it, didn't feel any incentive to return to the game, had sold it. Now, if you announce DLC, an expansion DLC, you might go out to the store and rebuy a brand new copy of the game because you don't want to miss out on the story content or however Nintendo could have expanded upon the lore of Tears of the Kingdom by coming out just a few months after the game had launched and saying, that's the game, you're not getting any more of it. You could have also potentially dissuade individuals from purchasing the game. Again, it's performed very strong. As Sean's saying, it may have a ceiling of 25 million copies. And if we are now at an age within the industry that 25 million copies is considered a disappointment, you may as well shut the industry down.
I say they should do it anyways, but I'm also a bit of a sadist. But as far as, other games on the list, was there anything that stood out in anyone's mind as kind of surprising beyond just Mario Kart Insanity and Tears of the Kingdom?
I was kind of surprised by how well Super Mario RPG sold. I felt like that is somewhat of a niche game, but I mean not super niche, but I didn't realize it was gonna. It's almost at 4 million, right? It's three
Mhm.
point eight or something.
Yeah.
That's kind of insane for an RPG. Uh, so that was about it, but
Yes,
it's a good
Super
game.
Mario RPG, definitely strong sales. Pikmin 4 continues to perform strong, especially in
What was
Japan.
Pikmin 4? I didn't see that.
It is over, let me get the IR report. I believe it was nearing like 5 million copies now.
Let's go. Yeah, that game is amazing.
Is it really? And Pikmin outselling Metroid. You Nintendo fans, you should hold your head in shame. Shame to let Pikmin outsell Metroid Dread. Mm. Mm-mm. All right, well, I
I
guess that's it
love
for the
Boast.
sales
I
stuff.
mean, on the topic of Metroid games, isn't it a damn shame we have not seen any update on Metroid Prime remastered sales since the original timeline of last February when they gave their fiscal report where it was just north of 1 million?
Yeah, that's
Well,
got to be selling well, right?
no, because don't
No,
they?
those sales fell flat immediately after it
Oh,
released.
Yeah, they update in million increments, right? Like if something gets an extra million, you usually get a new update on it. But yeah, they've never updated it since then. Which, that was a low risk, high reward situation. I'm sure they were happy with that initial million and everything else was just kind of gravy. But Metroid just doesn't sell. Where's the switch effect for Metroid, people?
Prime 4, it's coming.
Prime 4 is not Prime 4 could outsell Dread. I think it will. If it has bells and whistles that you would expect in a first person game that features shooting.
Yeah, imagine they give it like some like online multiplayer thing. That could do really well for it, I feel.
Yes, and I'm not sure that they're going to do that. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Nate,
Yeah, I
any
mean, Prime
insight on that one?
4, uh, nothing that I can share at the moment, but I mean,
What about
Prime
at this
4,
moment? Because this is a different moment than the last moment.
nothing in the immediate.
Oh, okay.
But Prime 4 is going to be an interesting one because Nintendo can really position it in a number of ways. If you position it as just a Switch 1 game, what type of sales potential are you going to see there? Now people say, okay, it means you have to have it on the Switch 2 as well. But there's going to be a significant power gap between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. So for Retro really to take advantage of that power of the Switch 2, you would almost prefer just a native version of the game. So you see the game with all the bells and whistles, the high-end performance, the visual fidelity, and so on and so forth. It all comes down to where they place that game in terms of launch timing. If it does have some significant Switch 2 enhancements, maybe it could be placed as kind of that secondary launch game of interest. Now, that's assuming it comes out, like in the holiday season. If it comes out before then, you might say Nintendo could potentially kneecap it right there and then. Hopefully, Metroid Prime 4 is a big seller, but as Sean said, realistically, we're probably looking at maybe a 3.5 million seller because Metroid is niche. It is not expanding its market. Japan does not care about it, and there's little reason to think Metroid Prime 4 is going to change that.
Do you think that Prime 4 sells better if it has an online multiplayer component versus just a single player?
I think it would depend on how engaging that online multiplayer would be. Because if you take it just as we play Metroid, as we're Samus in that view, you'd kind of say it's a little stiff, right? Especially for a shooter.
Yeah.
Because when we played a multiplayer Metroid game, we played it on the DS. Where we kind
Goddamn
of had
right.
we had that free flowing arm.
30 fucking maps on it too. Multiple game types, native voice chat on the Nintendo DS. Game was ahead of its time. It was one of
It
the most
was.
bold things Nintendo had ever did.
I think Metroid Prime 4 multiplayer just has to be rich in features, and the combat and the gunplay, for lack of a better word here, arm play, I don't know what you want to call it, cannon play, would
It's
really
PG.
have to be just, you're basically competing against Call of Duty at that point. Or you have to create something so unique that you're going to cater to a different audience, but you can still hook them with something.
But I think you could do it though, because aren't
Yeah.
like the hunters, they're not like dead or
Mhm.
something. Like, haven't they like made cameos and been alluded to and stuff? Like, you have a decent enough baseline with those hunters. Create a few more hunters to be like the different classes. I don't see you said it needs to be like feature rich. I don't know if it does. Like, I think,
Hmm.
just almost like a because unlike a lot of first person shooters, you have a strong story in this game. Like, Call of Duty story stinks. I no, I don't. I
Right.
played the last one. It took me 3 hours, and that was me taking my time. Seriously, it was ridiculous. Um, I never got really into the Halo stories or anything like that. I'm not necessarily saying that Halo stories are bad, because I know there are people that love them, but I never really got invested in those. But I would just like to have an option for multiplayer. And it doesn't have to be super crazy. You could just have, you know, a bunch of different hunters. You already have a decent number of hunters. You could change their colors or something like that for like a free for all or something. Have like, I don't know, 7 or 8 different match types, TDM, King of the Hill, free for all, so on and so forth. Um, and then, give me a good smattering of maps, some small, some large, whatever. And I think that would give a lot more incentive to people, because people play Splatoon, and Splatoon was a huge success. And Splatoon 1, when that game launched, there was nothing to it. There was like 4 or 5 maps, handful of
Right.
weapons.
But it was so unique. It was something we've never seen before. Could
But this could
Metroid
be
Prime
something we've
4
never
and
seen
Retro.
before in a Metroid game.
But you see, that's where I'll challenge you on that. We've never seen Retro really approach online multiplayer or multiplayer in general. We had the multiplayer in Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which
Local.
how many people really played?
Yeah. I checked it out, but I never really got super invested in it.
See, that's like, it's not Retro's specialty to make a multiplayer. They excel at the lore, the world building. That's what made them so successful with Metroid Prime Trilogy, even with the Donkey Kong games a bit. We don't know if they can do that. Now, if they can, even if it's a horde mode with online, something that we have seen from titles like Gears of War, maybe that could be successful in its own way. If they do multiplayer, I think it has to be unique because they can't compete with the online first person market, at least not with the gunplay that we see in the Metroid Prime games.
Right. But also, we don't have those first person experiences really on the Switch. So that could be sort of a new market for
Mhm.
them, right? Like, there's a lot of people who have Switches who are probably wanting that kind of stuff. And that kind of third or first person experience from Nintendo is pretty intriguing, I feel like. And they could do something like maybe like an Overwatch, like arena shooter team battle thing like that, which could work pretty well.
Like that could work well because you could have the hunters each with their own unique abilities and such. Samus obviously has hers. And if you want to bring in the Federation Force, Galactic Troopers that we had from Federation Force as some sort of, I guess, pawn type of class, it would at least give the game a little bit of diversity in terms of options for player types. Maybe something like that could work. I would just question whether or not Retro could pull off something that is really engaging.
Right. That's the question.
If that game launches without any sort of multiplayer, I will personally be disappointed. Not saying that it's going to be bad or anything like that. However, I can say one game that Retro did do that did have online multiplayer, and it wasn't bad. What's the game?
I'd
Mario
love to
Kart
know.
7, Mario Kart 7 3DS.
They assisted in
Mm,
developing some stages.
No. I think
They
they
weren't
did.
the primary developer.
They were a part of it. It takes crumbs to make a crumb cake. All right. And
Yeah, but they were one of the crumbs.
Who's to
But
say they can't get a crumb from the Splatoon team though, or something? Have a little crossover.
Because at that time, Retro was not purchased by Nintendo when they were making those Metroid games. True or false?
They were purchased during the development of Metroid Prime 1.
Really?
They
Oh
purchased them
no!
while they're developing
So
Prime 1,
confident.
and that's when they remember
But
back in the day
okay,
they had Raven Blade, they had the Twisted Metal ripoff, they had the football game, and Nintendo came in and said no.
Okay. Counterpoint. GameCube did not have strong online features. Really, the only system at that time was Xbox. So two
True.
games are completely out of the realm. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption obviously started development around, when they finished Metroid Prime 2. It could have been originally a GameCube game that they then retooled for a Wii version, and they put so much emphasis on it, they didn't care about the online. But a lot of time has passed since Metroid Prime 3. The industry has changed. The style of these games have changed. And I feel like that could be a glimmer of hope.
It's definitely a glimmer. Whether or not it shines, we will find out in due time.
Speaking of shining, we're at 2:30 watching right now. The other Nintendo podcast says 2:60. I'm not saying you need to go and retweet this and share it with your friends, but
you can just hit the like button. That actually does kind of a lot for the algorithm.
I wouldn't be mad if you did. All right, I'm not gonna tell you, what to do and what not to do. But where's this direct, Nate? I was told that there's a direct this week, should have been happening today, and then we could have been talking about it today. Been like, oh man, look at those games. They're coming out on the Nintendo Switch. That's crazy, bro. But now all of a sudden it's next week? And now you're putting out videos talking about said Nintendo Direct, giving information?
I mean, I would like to know, where did you hear that a Direct would be this week?
Shesh Paul. There's people, man. There's people on the YouTube sphere, Twitter sphere, websites. I saw it on websites too.
There was a ton of YouTube chatter about it for sure.
Tons of YouTube chatter, but now it seems like this upcoming week, and there's a little bit of disappointment in some people's tones because of what you said. What did you say?
I said that my expectation for the first Direct of 2024 is that it will be a partner Direct in February.
Partner Direct.
Yuck.
Now, to be fair, there was one partner Direct that was the absolute tits. And that, of course, was the one with Monster Hunter Rise. That one was cool. That one was good. You got Rise, and it was like you could just fart in a jar for the rest of this presentation, and it would still be an A, because that game looks great. But I feel like since we're at the end of this system's life cycle, which we'll talk about that in a moment, what's really there to show from your partners that's gonna make people excited or wow people or do something that that makes people excited for your system in 2024? Don't all talk at once, please, for the love of God. Like I can't think, like there's no a company isn't, or I shouldn't say isn't, probably isn't, working on a big Switch exclusive title or something like that. Like, is it going to be like ports in the Goemon game? Which, if that Goemon game is there, you're at a D plus C minus area, because that game looks fucking awesome. But I refuse to buy it on the Japanese eShop because there's so much, text in the game.
Nate, is this like a like a guess you have, or is this like a educated idea / leak-ish deal?
It is informed speculation. Let's go with that.
Based off of information that's available to the public, or no?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
Sting just won the AEW tag team title.
Holy shit.
Darby Allin. Good. Dang. He also did a balcony jump too. Sick.
Oh yeah, what if the partner direct is just all Xbox games? That'd be insane.
Well, okay. So, let's
That'd be
go
kinda
down this
cool.
road. Let's go under the assumption this is a partner direct. If they do, what? I'll just say games that we potentially know about. Deca Police, an update on that, because that was originally a 2023 game, and now it's 2024. Deca Police, the Goemon game, Hi-Fi Rush, and then some Square Enix RPGs or something like that. Is that sufficient enough? Even though that caters, to, I guess it caters to everyone. Like, is
So
that good enough?
they have this presentation, which by most Nintendo fans is gonna be disappointing, and then a couple weeks later they get to the Switch 2, or is that
We're not there yet. We're not there.
okay?
We're
Okay,
not
I'm
there
just
yet.
oh,
Oh, that's good.
Laxus says Penny's yeah,
Penny's
that would
Big
be
Breakaway.
there probably. That looks like a cool game, but
Maybe some Sega stuff. I know Nate knows something.
Nate, give us the inside scoop so this podcast can go viral.
Nate, we're 2 viewers away from beating the other podcast.
Nate, I swear this would fix all of it,
Just a little
Immediately
morsel.
viral podcast.
Sonic. So you put, okay, that's another game. You show gameplay of Sonic Generation or Sonic whatever the hell they named that game. But you show some gameplay from that game, because you got the first look with State of Play, and then you get like more details about it on there. You do Goemon. Is the Goemon game there? Just give me that at least.
I have no knowledge of that being there.
I feel
What
like
knowledge do you have of what being there?
That I cannot say.
A morsel.
A hint,
It's
Nate. A cryptic Morse code.
239 to 238 right now, with us in the lead by 1. You want to make that lead get bigger?
I will give a morsel in the Patreon exclusive Q&A
Oh,
immediately
no.
following the show.
That's right, boys and girls. You want the exclusivity? You better go to spawncastnetwork.com and sign up for the Patreon, because after this show, we will be going live for about a 30-minute or so Q&A session where you can ask anything, including ask about that morsel. Is the other show giving you that, pal? I don't think so. I don't think so. Josie, is there something you would like to see at this?
It'd be cool to see some sort of exclusive like we got with Monster Hunter Rise. I don't really know what they could possibly do and what third party would be interested in that at this point with the Switch. I just can't even what if they give another IP to Ubisoft, and Ubisoft is making like a Star Fox game and that's there. That'd be cool. I'd like that. But
what about what's Capcom doing? Like, I feel like Capcom's been pretty damn quiet on the Switch outside of like
their
Ace Attorney
collections.
stuff.
Yeah.
The collections and Ace Attorney stuff. Just seems like
They'd be cool. I'm not a big Capcom person though. Like I don't even know what would get me hyped from them.
You know what? I'm going to say something crazy.
Please.
I think I would be more excited for a partner direct than I would a standard Nintendo direct, because our next topic is going to talk about why we
right, because I guess it would be disappointing if you're
yeah, because really if it was a standard Nintendo direct, you're going to see more Peach, more Super Mario RPG, and more Luigi's Mansion 2, all of which could be done on Twitter, or hey, here's a new trailer or something like that. With a partner direct, I think you get a little bit more mystery. You get a bit more intrigue because they could just skip it. They could just be like, we're doing stuff, in the next month or two. So we don't really need to do a presentation. We could do just trailer drops or whatever. And I think people would be happy with that. You don't need a Nintendo Direct. A Nintendo Direct is a means to an end. It's to get you information on upcoming games that you should be excited for. So I say all that to say, I think the partner showcase might have a little bit more intrigue than a standard Nintendo Direct would.
Do you think that second party developers could be at a partner showcase? Like, say, like the HAL Laboratory, like Kirby team pulls up with a new original IP.
Yeah, I think if it's not a Nintendo property, like if it's not like a Kirby, well, it wasn't Cadence of Hyrule was at an indie world, right?
Yeah, it was in an indie world. So there
Uh,
is possibility there.
is this true, Nate? They can't necessarily skip a partner direct because they may have deals to show games in directs. Now, from what I've been told about Nintendo Directs, Nintendo will ask the company, but they don't say what type of direct it is. So you could be in an indie world, you could be in a partner showcase, this, that, or the other. Like the deals are made, like obviously the stuff is shot and edited and made into a video, but the deals are made a lot closer than I think people would imagine. Am I right on that, or at least partially right? Because I know one part of that is right.
I mean, Nintendo will usually reach out to partners anywhere from 3 to 5 months in advance of a direct to first gauge interest so they can get the assets gathered and everything. And yeah, unless you're an indie developer, you typically aren't aware what type of direct you will be in. I had talked to a publishing contact a couple of years back where they thought their game was going to be in a general direct and then it appeared in a partner direct, and they had actually become a little bit agitated by that because nobody had tuned in because it was a partner direct, because there was a lot of online hype and discussion about it being a general direct. So a lot of people just opted not to tune in. And the company was a little bit frustrated by that because the reason they had agreed is that they were under the belief that they were going to be in a general direct, and they kind of felt maybe they could have gained greater social media engagement had they just tweeted it out themselves. But Nintendo doesn't always disclose exactly the form factor that the direct to partners as far as the type of showcase their title will be show or represented in. So yeah, that part's true, and it definitely does come down to like contracts and all that type of stuff. Of you reached out, we gave you the assets, we've agreed to appear in a show, so they can't just cancel them or anything at the last minute. It's hey, we've committed to this, unless it's a real world event, a natural catastrophe or something. Then you
Well,
could obviously delay it, but
wait a second here. Now you're bringing up something interesting.
Valentine's Day. What are you
No,
gonna talk
the
about?
king. Remember there?
Triple H.
No, the dude in Britain, England, whatever it's called.
They're not going to delay a direct because he has cancer.
What if he passes?
They didn't delay the direct because the queen died, and they had Fire Emblem in that, and that game dealt with regicide.
Look, it's a possibility is all that I am saying. But I guess Josie, do you know how to do any of that?
Google Podcast is the same as YouTube Music now. So if you use Google Podcasts, you go to YouTube Music and then it'll show up with our podcast under there. iTunes, I have no clue because I think John takes care of that, but I can talk to him.
Yeah, talk to John because he's not gonna do shit on his own.
I'll if it's not on there, I can start uploading them on there.
Just want to let you guys know we are at 254 to 243 once again for the second week straight. We
Let's
are your
go.
number one Nintendo podcast with a small spattering of subscribers. So if you're tuning in for the first time, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel as we go bi-weekly on this channel. There, of course, is the Patreon exclusive after show. For as little as $5 a month, you can help support this show and keep the lights on going here. because John sure as hell isn't going to do anything. And of course, you get exclusive benefits. You get other shows. There's Q&As for those other shows. Ask MVG questions. Ask him why he's bald. Whatever you want to ask the man. But our final topic.
Oh wait,
before we
can you
get
put Matthew Lonzo on the screen real quick? He
which
said,
one?
"Yeah, I didn't see the last one on Spotify." So if that's not happening, I will talk to John and I can do all of that tonight, ideally.
All right, you
Just
heard
wanted
it
to
here
address
first,
it.
pal. Switch 2, March event. Another Nate the Hate exclusive. What are we doing here, Nate? What are we doing? You couldn't just do one topic on your show and then save one for this one? Like, what's going on with that? What's this event? Is it an unveiling? Is it a trailer? Is it an announcement? What am I getting here, pal?
All I can say is what I said on my show is that the Switch 2 appears to be poised and ready for a reveal or an announcement in March. Nintendo will announce Switch 2 in March.
Will. So you're putting
So that's a
your
confirmation.
that's a confirmation, pal.
I mean, everything I'm hearing dating back to Gamescom of last year has indicated something was happening in March. That talk has resurfaced in the last few weeks, and it is indicating that the Switch 2 is set for a reveal or an announcement in March. Yes.
There's the
Do you
Game and
think-
Talk exclusive with the confirmation. Let's go.
Do you yeah, make sure you clip it. Still got to get monetization on this channel, pal.
Sure.
Do you think that it doesn't have to be based on knowledge or anything like that, but do you think it's it's just a tweet like they've done before, like saying, "Hey, we're working on a new system code name poo poo pee pee," or do you think it's an actual presentation? Because I mean, Nate technically is 10% African, so you're not wrong. But I think he's taller than 6 foot. I think he's 6'3". Am I correct on it?
6'2".
Hey, you could,
I mean, I could
wear a
say
little
6'3".
wear a little platform shoe. It never hurt anyone. Yeah. So what? Because to me, if this is coming out this year in the fall, looking because Nintendo with the Switch, they did a tweet in March, reveal in April. I mean, in August. I mean, October. Jesus Christ. Let's start over. They did a tweet in March 2016. October 2016, they showed the initial trailer. March 2017, they launched the system. So if it's coming this year, I don't see, that doesn't. Don't put it on screen, but that's funny. I feel like it has to be more than just a tweet. Right?
I mean, that's really the thing, is how Nintendo will approach it. Is it going to be kind of what you and I would be used to for an E3 reveal? Remember when they would announce hardware at E3?
Yes.
And you'd have the trailers in the background, you would have a little look at the system, and then they would slap a release date at the end of that trailer, whenever it would be. Right now, I don't have any insight as to how they're going to announce and reveal this particular piece of hardware. It could be as simple as just a press release, or them coming out and saying, hey, we're releasing the successor to the Nintendo Switch 2 later this year. Stay tuned for additional details later this summer, and maybe June. A general direct in June could be the huge unveiling of the system with games and everything. And then you'd have media go to various events so they could get hands-on previews prepped, and then you go into Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show, where the public could have their first introduction to the system, and then you launch it in the holiday. But it's also dependent on when they would kind of initially launch this hardware. If you launch it in September, then I think you could position March as similar to the October unveiling of the Switch. You have that hype sizzle trailer. If it's launching in November, you could wait till June to give that hype trailer and just give a generic press release type of announcement in March. It really depends when it's going to launch. I'd say anytime between September and November is going to be that launch window. If I had to choose, I mean, obviously I'd want it to be as soon as possible, but I wouldn't really be too surprised if it is November, especially when you weigh the information that came from Bloomberg just a few weeks ago about, I believe it was a 10 million screen order for the fiscal year.
Right.
So you'd be having 10 million units from November to March. That's not really that many units when you factor in the holiday.
Good point. I don't know though. I don't know if they can just be like, "Hey, you know, we're doing a new system, guys and gals. Sorry we didn't do a direct." Like, I don't know. Like I feel like you got to do a trailer because then you got to assume that the June direct is going to talk about the games, right?
Absolutely.
So I think you got to go teaser trailer at the bare minimum.
Yeah. I
I
think so
think
too, especially if we're skipping a direct, basically, right? We're getting a partner direct instead of this. So what would people play in the meantime, even on their Switch? Because like there wouldn't be a lot coming out after Princess Peach Showtime, right?
we see, and that's one of the things that I
Paper
touch on
Mario.
in the show with John Linneman as well, is that if the Switch 2 is backwards compatible as John and I expect it will be, you go into that next general direct. You don't have to make any, you know, you don't have to clarify anything. It's all these games can be played on Switch 2.
Right.
You can have the designation for the Switch 1 games like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, Luigi's Mansion, but you can now showcase everything. You don't have to have any designations. It's just boom, here we go. And it really comes down to how Nintendo wants to approach it. I think March with a trailer would be the proper thing, but at the same time, depending on how far apart the Switch 2 is from the Switch 1 in terms of a concept, a gimmick, you may not necessarily need that trailer because you don't have to sell an idea or a concept now. They had to sell us on the idea of a hybrid system in October of 2016. If this is just a continuation of that, do we really need a trailer?
Right, but you think we wait half a year basically to like June to get any sort of information on the next games or anything like that? Or would there be also a presentation that maybe just doesn't address the Switch too directly?
Well, that's the thing is it's not as though they're, bound to June. If they want to come out in May and
Mhm.
have a direct where they fully reveal the Switch 2 with some software, they can. If they want to go in April, they can. They can play by their own rules at this point. They just have to get to the point of announcing the hardware. Anything
Guess
after that is
what?
up for Nintendo's marketing scheme.
It's gonna be May. Um, no, I think you gotta do something, man. Because, like you said, the March to October thing was weird to me, but that was just to like appease people because the Wii U wasn't doing shit. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you gotta, and that's kind of what we're seeing from a lot of companies. It's like a 6-7 month turnaround from first unveiling to release. And then, you have your June direct to showcase some of the games, but you can also show some smaller Switch titles that are coming out. Of course, there's the whole backwards compatibility thing kind of up in the air. Um, but you can also confirm that at one of these presentations. Then September is your big pre-launch thing. You show the lineup of stuff, and then you roll into the holiday season with a high demand. That kid that's yelling in the background of Josie's video, she's gonna want a Switch too, probably.
I mean, that's
I
going to be
don't
the thing.
know.
A lot of people are going to want to. And I'm going to bring up one of the topics John and I did discuss just to get your views on it.
John
John and
Linneman,
I
by the
are
way,
kind
not
of,
not
yes, John
smelly
Linneman
John,
of Digital Foundry. We're both in
the real
agreement that
John.
Nintendo's going to ditch the Joy-Con.
Thank God.
You'll get a singular unit similar to a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally, and then Nintendo will package in a Pro Controller for when you're playing docked. Do you think that would be a good idea for them, or do you think Nintendo retains the Joy-Con?
I
I
feel
I I think you got to get rid of those Joy Cons.
I don't
Josie
know.
loves the Joy-Con.
I don't love the Joy-Cons, but I see the merit in it. Like, I use them on the side all the time. I don't like it, but it's convenient. So I just feel like for younger people, it might be like that's kind of a
Well,
cool selling point of the Switch
let's say it's still compatible. You could
with old
still, like, they could
Joy-Cons.
still offer the Joy-Cons as a compatible controller with the Switch 2. It's just that the unit itself would be like a Switch Lite. You can't detach them.
Yeah, think about it, because when was the last time Nintendo had the same control scheme from console to console?
Never.
Never.
Well,
When
they
it was,
did the sort of thing with the Wii U where you could use your Wiimotes, but
yeah, but that was a monstrosity. But
yeah, but
that wasn't the
could
main
it
controller. The main controller was, of course, the gamepad.
right.
Like, you can make it so, I don't know, maybe some game, if there's backwards compatibility, you can still use Joy-Cons or something like that. SNES, what are you talking about? NES to SNES was different. SNES to N64 was wildly different. You know, I don't know. I wouldn't be sad to see the Joy-Cons go, as I've been through many a pair with stick drift.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think if they come in with that just unified body and then you allow Joy-Cons to be compatible, because you can still sell them as accessories. Accessories make a lot of money. And obviously Nintendo wants to sell controllers and such. I think that's a good avenue for them to go. And a lot of people have been very vocal in my comments on my video about this topic, saying, nope, they have to keep the Joy-Cons. People love the Joy-Cons for tabletop play and, I guess local multiplayer and such.
Yeah. I mean, I won't be sad to see him go. Evan asks, do you think we could get an overview trailer of Paper Mario and a random announcement of a game or two before the June Direct? I do. I mean, you'll definitely get trailers on stuff like Peach and Paper Mario if this is a partner showcase. A new announcement, maybe not. Maybe a smaller title, an eShop exclusive or something like that. And our final thing, we got about 8 minutes for it, is our debate, our legendary debates. And I have posed a question to these fine individuals. Now, what is that question? I don't really remember, so I'm going to look it up real quick. I remember the gist of it, but I don't remember how I worded it. Okay. What is a game missing from the Nintendo Switch that you want? Could be a first-party game, a third-party game. The caveat is it has to be a game that's already like released on another platform and has a reasonableness to it coming to the platform. I will start with myself and my fellow Americans and wherever you live. I think this answer is clear cut, crystal clear, because not only do you get one game with my answer, but my friends, you get two games, two masterpieces of games, two games that are already available in HD versions on platforms such as the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Two timeless games that could be enjoyed with multiple replay value, multiple playthroughs,
Oh,
with
I know
multiple
exactly where
secrets.
you're going.
You goddamn right. The Shenmue 1 and 2 HD collection. I guarantee, Sega, you listen to me. I guarantee you, if you put that out on the Switch, it will outsell the PlayStation 4 version. It'll outsell the Xbox version. Guaranteed. Guaranteed, because nobody bought it on those platforms, and they should have, but nobody did. Give the streets what we want. We want Shenmue. No, not Player Essence. Player Essence isn't the other Nintendo podcast. Josie, speak on it.
Mine is gonna get laughed at by you guys, but I think it has a lot of potential. Nintendogs. We gotta bring it back. It was it was amazing on the DS. It sold very, very well. It's a franchise that I know a lot of people don't care about, but there are a lot of casual players who do. Nintendo, with the move to Switch 2, they're going to want to start putting these more casual, smaller experiences that maybe don't require as much effort onto the Nintendo Switch. And I think that Nintendogs is the perfect one to do that.
Interesting case. Nathaniel?
And wait,
Oh,
sorry.
hold
This one, you have all of the dogs. You don't have to get a certain version to have the dog you want. It's all encompassing. So it's basically like a remaster or best of Nintendogs on the Switch.
on. Last of the Nintendogs. Nate, what do you got for me?
I'm coming with a game no one but myself has played. A gem from another console that released just a couple of years ago.
Oh, God, I know what it is.
A game that was so profound that it confused the very audience it was meant to cater to. A game with lovely, lovely visuals, art that was just spellbinding, and characters that stuck with you for years. Yes, Sean, I am talking about the one, the only, the hidden gem of the current generation. That is Pentiment.
Brandon Wells knew it before you even said it.
Pentiment. A game no one played, but they should have. A game that they will one day look back on and say, wow, I can't believe I missed out on this. A game so good, nobody recognized it for what it was.
Josie, run the poll.
I'm doing it right now.
I know Pentiment won't win, and that just furthers the point. It's too good for the likes of us.
I swear to God, if Nintendogs wins, y'all are crazy. People in
You
the
s-
chat.
You said
Say-
Shenmue 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
J. Arthur, where's Symphony of the Night on the Switch? You have to imagine they're doing another Castlevania collection, and that's going to be, one of the classic games that comes over. I mean, that could be something that's at a partner presentation. That's nothing outside of the. I mean, Limited Run's been on a roll with Konami, Felix, and Rocket Knight Adventures. Like, you're getting into some deep cuts with that stuff. Like, I personally bought Rocket Knight because I didn't get the super collector's edition because I was kind of like, I got the middle one. I thought the middle one was like the best of both worlds.
Wait, Nate, sell me on Pentiment. I'm confused.
No, it's on Game Pass.
It is.
Do you like point and click adventure, murder, mystery narratives?
Play Hotel Dusk. That's a fucking great game.
It's better than Hotel Dusk.
No.
Yes.
There's no way.
Yes.
There's no way that story is.
I, as the main character in Pentiment, was able to hook up with a nun.
Hotel Dusk is just cool,
hell?
though.
It's something you can do.
That's insane.
No,
She just
Hotel.
throws herself at you too.
You know what?
Wow.
That's if not
for
Shenmue,
Jesus.
give me Hotel Dusk. HD it up. Add in like some new content or some crap like that. That'd be awesome.
Did you guys ever play Nintendogs?
Yes, I did.
Okay, did you like it?
It was
was cool.
fine for the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a lot of nostalgia because that was like the game I played on my DS, on my pink little DS. So, but like, tell me what to bring in so many casuals. It'd be so great.
God, you spelled Shenmue wrong.
I'm
So
sorry.
if I lose this, it's because it's not Shamu. There's an E at the end, ma'am. How is Nintendogs winning? Do you people not have taste?
Where's Pentiment? How's Pentiment doing?
It's called knowing your
Pentiment's in
audience.
third.
I know these guys want Nintendogs.
Pentiment.
See,
So
I always
30
felt Nintendogs was better suited for Nintendo's mobile market.
You know
put
what?
that
I
on
think
an
it would be
iOS
great
or an
mobile.
Android device?
Yeah,
Boom.
that would do great mobile. That'd be a great one.
See? Well, it looks like
Now, if you like murder mystery games, Pentiment is a game for you.
You
if
know
you
what we
like
should argue
murder
next
mystery
time?
games, Shenmue is a game for you. You have to find out who killed your father, Lon D.
If you
Or
like
Lon-
murder mystery
why
games,
Lon D killed your father.
You're technically
Nintendogs
right.
is not for you.
However, unlike Shenmue, Pentiment does have an ending.
Shenmue has an ending for the first two games that's very satisfying. It just makes you want to know more about the world and the story.
Yeah, then Shenmue 3 came out.
God, we don't talk about Shenmue 3. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Like I said, join us in about 15 or so minutes for the Patreon exclusive after show, where Nate is going to give us a morsel, because I have not forgot about that. $5 and up tier gets you access to that and so much more. So much more.
Wait, you spelled Pentiment wrong too?
Yeah, she did. It's fine.
I'm sorry. I don't know these games.
Shout outs to you guys. We
Tell me
hit
how to
over
spell it.
300 viewers. Once again, we were the #1 viewed Nintendo podcast, even with mistakes. And we'll
I'm
be
in
back
college. I still
she's
have
in
to learn.
college. She's
Still have to
probably on
learn.
drugs.
Shenmue, the
So many
story about a
drugs.
cow whose
Shenmue.
father was murdered.
We'll be back.
Hold on. We are almost to 4,000 hours of watch time. With this next podcast, we should be around there. So just thank you guys for watching the videos and stuff. It's really cool.
And Josie's gonna work on the other platform stuff for you guys. She's also doing clips on here. So if you missed part of the show and you don't feel like listening to it for an hour, there will be clips up on the YouTube channel. I'm RGT85, joined as always by Josie Woe, Nate the Hate. Go check out Nate's video from today. Check out Josie's video from today. Check out my video from today. And like I said, for all of our Patreon members, we will be live in about 15 minutes to hang out with you guys for a while and answer some questions, and you get an exclusive nugget. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thanks for the win.